Hey everyone, welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Brittany Jones-Cooper. The new USA series Pearson centers around the world of recently disbarred New York City lawyer Jessica Pearson as she adjusts to the dicey world of Chicago politics. Actress Isabel Arraiza is here today to talk about her role as Yoli Castillo. But first, here's a clip. Put your hands together for Isabel Arraiza.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming.
How you doing today?
Very excited to be here.
Yeah, and the show is, what, is it tomorrow?
Yeah, we premiere tomorrow.
Yeah.
I am so excited.
So what is that like? I'm sure there's like tons of build up, and what does it feel like that people actually get a chance?
It's surreal. Honestly, it's like this is like my first press tour. Like this is all very new to me. And the other day I was at the supermarket and it kind of like hit me. There, aisle 7. I was like, oh my God, like, this is really happening. So it's a really fun and surreal time for me.
I'm sure it is, because so much work goes into creating a show, and then especially when you see this show, how well produced, it's such a beautiful show. The writing, I mean, everything really came together, so I'm sure that like you can't wait for people to see it. Let's go back to the beginning for you though. What was your audition process like for Pearson, or how did you find out about it?
Okay, I was in Puerto Rico shooting a show called The Oath. I had a recurring there, and so I'm originally from Puerto Rico, but I was staying in a hotel. They set me up very nicely, and I remember I had done a tape here in New York, didn't hear from them for weeks. And when I was in Puerto Rico, I got a call from my agent and my manager, and they were like, they want to do a callback. Can you tape yourself for tonight? Because this is for LA. So I was like, yeah, you got it. And I called my sister's friend, Michelle, who's a 5th grade teacher in Tennessee. And she's originally from Puerto Rico, so she speaks English and Spanish perfectly. And I was like, this is the person that could be my reader. She has no accent. This is perfect. So I called her. I was like, Michelle, can you come to the hotel? She's like, yeah, don't worry. And my mother decided that she wanted to go to the spa that day and in the pool. And I was like, Ma, we got a call back for the Suits spinoff. You can't come to the room. And she's like, don't you worry about it. I'm just going to be around the pool area. It's going to be perfect. Then she comes up to the room and we started to tape. And I was like, Ma, please, like, you gotta go. Like, we need to turn this. And she's like, don't worry about it, don't worry. So she sits on the bed, she orders room service. And every time I start like saying my first line, she's like, no, this is, girl, didn't you go to the acting school? This is terrible. So she started to direct me. And I was like, Ma, really? We only have like 4 hours to submit this. She started giving me line reads. And like my first line was, Oscar, how are you? And so every time I would say my line, she would be like, that's terrible. And finally she gave me the line reading, which we ended up using for the tape. Yeah. And then I got a call the next day and they were like, we're flying you out to LA, girl. So I was like, Ma, that first line, you really killed it. That was good.
Your mom was like, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
I gave you birth and I helped you get this role.
So, you know, that was really fun. And then we flew to LA. And again, I had never tested for anything before. It was all very new to me. And I just thought, okay, it's going to be a bunch of, you know, white executives. Not that I'm vilifying white men, but that's how it usually goes. And I just thought, okay, here we go. And the minute I opened the door, Gina was there, this like beautiful, regal Afro-Latina woman greeting me in Spanish. And in that moment, like something shifted in me. I just felt seen. I felt, you know, that I could be myself and bring myself to the role.
She's an executive producer on the show as well. So I'm sure that has a lot to do too with just like the vibe and everything. Yeah. I want to note too that this is a spinoff of Suits, which was a really long, you know, popular long running show. Meghan Markle, you know, you guys. But I want to remind people that they don't have to have known the characters from Suits to get this, because I personally didn't watch Suits. And I was a little concerned. I was like, am I going to know who Jessica is? And it really doesn't matter. They build everything. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, it's beautifully built. And I mean, there's some formulas that you can see, like, that we took from Suits, but it's just completely different. The tone, the issues that we wrote into the show, and almost even the coloring of the show. It's like really dark. It's raw. It's just a completely different animal.
Yeah. So let's talk about your character.
Yes.
Yoli. Who is she?
I love her. Well, Yoli is originally the social media coordinator for Suits and Sanitation, so very glamorous, and eventually becomes Jessica Pearson's executive assistant. She's very outspoken and idealistic and has no filter, which can be very difficult for Jessica Pearson. But it's almost like the trajectory of her. We see this young woman at the beginning, and she kind of becomes a woman by the end of the season. So that's really exciting to play. It's really cool.
And in some of the earlier episodes, you mentioned she wasn't working with Jessica yet, but they have sort of this like back and forth, this kind of tension vibe. So what was it like your first sort of couple scenes with Gina and like building that chemistry?
That was awesome. I mean, we speak Spanish. So the first scene, I think she doesn't speak Spanish and she's going through security and there's almost like a diss, you know, we're making fun of her. And that apparently happened to Gina in real life. So she wrote it into the first scene. And I just love that this is how we get to meet Yuli because it's clear that this girl has no filter. She kind of thinks she knows it all. And then she's proven wrong. So it's almost like in a very short scene what's going to happen throughout the whole trajectory of the season of the character's life. It was really fun. And it was really fun. I'd never played a scene like that on TV that I could get to, you know, go back and forth between Spanish and English. I mean, it was really cool that we did that.
It seems like a probably pretty unique experience. And I know with Gina, you know, she's Afro-Latina. Her character is Afro-Latina. That was important for her to have that connection, that her character speaks Spanish, she speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
That representation part of it is really important, especially for, I think, the Afro-Latina group, because I think oftentimes they're seen as invisible.
Well, I think that term was coined, I think, the last 2 years, I believe. And so it's interesting because nobody knew that. What I think it's important about that scene also, it's the first time I think Suits fans will notice that, oh my God, wait, how come she knows Spanish? Why is she speaking Spanish? And then you find out that her mom, I mean, Gina was born to immigrant parents, Cuban parents, but in the show, she decided to write for Pearson in this plot that she's actually, her mom is Cuban and that her name is Jessica Lourdes Pearson. And this is like a little nugget of information that we didn't have in Suits and they kind of wrote it into the plot. I thought it was really cool.
I think that's really cool too. And let's talk about Chicago a little bit. I know Mayor Bobby isn't supposed to be modeled after Rahm Emanuel.
They kind of look alike.
They kind of look alike, right?
I know.
Were there any conversations on set like, you kind of look like Rahm Emanuel?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And now with the new mayor elected, we're like, bye, man. I don't know what's going to happen to you next season. So, yeah, we joke about that all the time.
Did you discover any interesting things about Chicago politics when you were sort of kind of researching for the show or building your character?
It's such a rich history, right? The history with their communities. And what the plot of the first episode tackles with something that happened in 2015, right? So I think we're dealing with a lot of relevant issues. Chicago's the backdrop, but it's such a rich cultural city and so many things have happened in Chicago that I think it's just a very rich terrain to kind of explore that. Yeah.
It's a city that lends itself to keeping secrets, which is so important for like the character development in this show. Like everybody sort of has like an other secret.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you getting scripts? Like, did you guys get scripts a week at a time or did you know where things were going? Because there's like a lot of little twists and turns.
With Yuli, I can tell you honestly, I feel like there was a definite evolution in the writing. And like at the beginning, I remember when I was testing for the show, it almost had that very like traditional narrative, this very, I would say, dated idea of Latinos born in the U.S. They're kind of rough and tumble, and they know the streets, and then they started to play more with my own personal sense of humor and kind of my effervescence, and they wrote that into the show. So then she became a more complex, interesting character, very layered. So you got to see, yes, she knows everybody, and she's hardworking, and she, grew up in Chicago and whatnot, but she's also very funny and very smart, and sometimes even innocent, And so those qualities, and to see that in a character, I just thought, this is so fun and so different that we get to see this, a young Latina woman like this on TV.
Is that something that really you have to think about before you go in and audition for a role or accept a role? Is just like that character's representation, any stereotypes, any sort of like potholes like that?
Yeah, but I think we're getting better. Yeah. I can track a difference from when I started 2 years ago and where we're heading right now as an industry. It's a really exciting time to be a part of it and to launch your career, because I feel like we're on the brink of getting things right. Yeah. And so it's really starting to happen.
It is. I do this for a living. I get to talk to really talented performers every day. And you are seeing just it being a more natural, thoughtful process with casting and just storylines and different narratives being explored. It is actually really encouraging. And I would imagine as an actor, it's probably really encouraging to be working at this time.
Oh, it is. And I remember, I think when we were shooting honestly, when I started shooting it, I had no idea that one of the set of circumstances was that she was going to be a dreamer. And that happened at the end of the first episode. We decided to add that into the mix. And it's interesting because I realized that's just a set of circumstances. It's not going to change how I'm approaching this character. But I remember one of the writers, Sanai Hoffman, came up to me by episode 2 and she's like, I want to write something very juicy for you, but also an experience that seems real and relevant. And can you help? So she interviewed me. And then I started to see a difference in the writing. It's like they're really listening to us and they're kind of, they're just not writing these formulaic plots. It's just a very mindful exercise of trying to write something that means something in the world and that it's important storytelling and it's very current and relevant. So
that is so cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this is like a kind of a big role for you, a TV network show. How did you get started acting?
I was 8.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time, everybody, 1998. Well, I was doing a school play and we had like a talent day for parents, one of those activities that you do and you bring parents over. And I remember I was playing a mom and they wanted to record the lines because they just thought we weren't capable of memorizing the lines. And I remember I begged my 3rd grade teacher, no, please, I really want to. I know the lines, I'm gonna get ready. And she's like, no. So they played the whole, and we dubbed the lines, no. And at the end, we were supposed to freeze. And I just decided to improvise a completely different ending. And I remember while I was doing it, it was like something had taken over me. I was doing it and all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. And then I saw my 3rd grade teacher keep going, they're loving it. And after that, I got a standing ovation from my incredible performance. And after that, it just felt like, oh, this makes sense. This is the place where, because I went to a arts and science, a math and science school. They specialized on that, and I was terrible. So I just thought, oh my God, I'm just a highly creative person. This is my intelligence. This is how it, comes to light. And I just kind of gave it context and meaning, and I just felt really accepted. It just came very naturally to me. So I just thought, I want this for the rest of my life.
I also feel like going to a math and science school would make me want to be an actor as well.
Yeah.
Truly.
I failed most of my
that sounds really
school,
tough if you're not a
school.
STEM kid,
Yeah. I cheated. In senior year of high school, all my calculus tests, I would ask this guy, Moncho, to help me with. I shouldn't say that. It sounds terrible.
Thank you, Moncho.
But thank you, Moncho. He's in Barcelona. He's a math professor now. He was a genius, and I'm an actor. So it was meant to be. Everybody's winning for sure.
That's all that matters. So then how did you break into your first role? What was that process like? Did you go to theater, school, or was it auditioning?
Well, I was 16, and my sister had uploaded, YouTube was a new concept. And my sister uploaded this YouTube video that I did as a joke for my dad. This was recorded on her camera, and it went viral in Puerto Rico and in Latin America. So after that, I started getting work in the National Theater in Puerto Rico. And I decided to go to college and study. I was going to study modern languages. And then I was like, nah, I'm just going to study acting. So I already had a career back in Puerto Rico, and I did a bunch of things there. And then I came to grad school here in New York and continued training for extra 4 years to get my master's, and graduated 2017.
What was this video that went viral? What were you doing?
It's called Monólogo Idiomático. Okay. And basically, I was in the back of my sister's car, and she would ask, different dialects. I was improvising a monologue, and she would be German. And then I would phonetically try to recreate the sounds of German. I don't think it's aged well, by the way, but I did 21 different dialects, and I would do all the accents from Latin America. So I would do Cuban, I would do Dominican, I would do, Castilian Spanish. And
That's amazing that you can put that on your resume too. Like, I can do all these different accents.
Yeah,
like,
that was
as an
good. That was
actor,
cool.
they're like, can you do a German accent? You're like, yes, I can.
It was good.
That's really cool. Have you had a chance to try out any of your different dialects or accents in work?
I did in grad school here in New York.
Okay.
We did a lot of Shaw plays, and so I did a really good British dialect, I must say. It made Shakespeare easier, like learning. There's a rhythm to it, and I felt like I would get very easily into it because of this talent, which is very odd. So, yeah.
That's cool. Has there been any actors that you've worked with on Pearson or other shows or movies that have like informed your performance or helped you sort of like, oh, that's a kind of actor I want to be or a path I want to go down?
I think I take from everyone that I work with. For example, when I did a movie right after grad school, I didn't even know what marks were, by the way. I didn't even know where to stand. And then when I finally like learned that, then I remembered that I had to say my lines. It was terrible. It was a lot going on. They were like, well, now you can sound like a human. I mean, it was just a whole, and I was working with Jason Sudeikis, and he was very patient with me. And so was Lee Pace and Judy Greer. So I learned from them to be graceful and patient. Like, they would explain it to me, you know, after take 34, like, okay, you're supposed to walk to the mark, you're supposed to say your line, and you're supposed to act like a human. I was like, oh my God, this is a lot. Got it. But I feel like I take from everyone, and I learn from different ways of getting into character. You know, everyone has a different method and a different way of doing it. And I feel like I take that with me. Oh, okay, this actor did that.
What kind of works for you for getting into character and then I guess maybe out of character?
I think it depends on the part, but I did this really dark movie called American Dreamer, which is coming out now in September, and that was just very hard. And I remember I would do this technique that they taught me in school. It's called the Alexander technique, which is like how to realign your body physically, but also energetically. And so I would do it right before. It's almost like you protect yourself and you allow to get into that world, knowing that you can also cut it out the second that you need to. You know, I respect all actors, but sometimes method acting drives me a little bit crazy. So
it drives the actor crazy as well.
Oh, yeah, I have stories. I don't think I can share them here, but yes. So this is a way that I kind of like connect to the character and disconnect from the character, and I do it for every part that I play. That's something very basic, but then it depends. Like, it depends on the makeup, it depends on the hair. Like, all the elements come together, and then you're just psychologically there. So I feel like every part has its own kind of way of getting into and out of it.
I would imagine like the makeup, the hair, and the wardrobe
informs
in particular too. The wardrobe in this show is so beautiful.
Isn't it so gorgeous?
It really is. Who is the costume designer on?
Her name is Julie Andrada.
Oh, she's a genius.
She is a genius, by the way. I was telling the girls that one of my favorite, my makeup team, I said one of my favorite things about working on the show is to spend time with Jolie. And I feel that by osmosis, I'm just like getting all this information, so I'm learning how to dress myself a little bit better. Because this woman has impeccable taste. And I think she's dressing other first ladies. Like, she does that on her off time when she's not dressing characters from Suits or Pearson.
That's her side gig.
She's so cool. Yeah, she's like, oh, I'm going to be in Morocco like next week dressing the ambassador's wife and the first lady of Morocco. I'm like, okay, Julie, calm down.
I'm curious. I only got to see the first 2 episodes. Does Yoli's style get a little more enhanced working in the proximity of Jessica? Because Jessica is dressed.
Yes, I think
every outfit.
I think so. And I think it's going to be more evident as time keeps on going that her style starts to change. Yeah. And I wear like really cool vintage pieces, like Chanel skirts from the 70s and like Prada. I mean, it just gets better and better. So it's really fun.
Perks of the job.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, we do have 2 questions. So who do we have first?
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
I was just curious, you mentioned that this show was one of your first camera tests in LA. Do you have any like crazy stories from when you were first getting started auditioning that would maybe shed light on how you got to that point?
I have so many crazy stories, girl. I had one here in New York, and I ended up getting the part for it, but the director showed up, and he wanted to interview me personally, and then he was like, okay, let's do the test. And then he grabbed the camera and it was almost like, yes, give it to me. It was almost like very like, do it now, turn to the right. It was really intense. And I think I got the part because I was able to kind of manage that intensity. But all the previous experiences really helped me to kind of show up and be as grounded as possible and kind of deal with whatever challenge I was met on that test specifically.
That just made me realize how inherently uncomfortable being an actor must feel sometimes. Like that to me sounds like a nightmare. And you're like, yeah, and I rolled with it and I got the job. I'm like, I would quit.
That was funny. That was actually really funny. But I interrupted the test and I was like, look, man, because I was supposed to be like a fashion model and I dressed up very nicely for the part because this woman historically had very impeccable taste. And I had Chanel shoes that I had inherited from a friend. And I was like, look, if my acting's not good, look at my shoes. They're Chanel, you know? And after that, he was like, I gave you the part because that was like really witty and also very bold to say that to a director. I was like, okay.
I love that. And one last question.
Great. Hi, we have a question from online at our website, buildseries.com. And it's, moving to a production of this size, what was the first moment on set where the scale of the show really hit you?
When I walked into City Hall, that was basically, we shoot it in a giant warehouse in LA. And then they gave us a tour of the set. And I just thought, oh my God, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I mean, the replica of the city. And it's incredible. So I think I had a moment there. And then, as I said, aisle 7 of my supermarket 2 days ago.
This did feel like a very Chicago show. I read that it was, filmed in LA, but you did the exteriors in Chicago, which sort of encompasses the vibe. But even it sounds like the set was just very meticulous. Like,
yes,
it really read as Chicago, which is really nice. Yeah. Another perk of the show. So many perks of this show. I have to say, I was like very pleasantly just engaged and surprised the entire time. Yeah. The show is so good. I think new fans and old fans are going to really connect to the material.
I hope so, because it's great. It's a great show.
So congrats on this and everything coming down the line for you.
Thank you so much,
if you guys want to check out Pearson, it premieres Wednesday, July 17th at 10/9 Central on USA. Please give it up for Isabel.
Thank you, guys.